Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
My name is Eugenio Vargas. Welcome to the many faces of gamer diversity. Thanks for joining us today. These delightful folks are my gaming group. We'll go down and introduce in just a moment. Actually, let's just go ahead and do that now.
Oh, okay. My name is Arturo Angel de Jesus Garcia Costas III. Jesus.
Of course it is.
I am the elder gamesman of the group. I was born in Puerto Rico and grew up in South Bend, Indiana. I have been playing D&D and other tabletop role-playing games since the mid-'70s, often in my basement. So the kids in Stranger Things, right here. Currently, I'm a program officer at New York City's Community Foundation, where I run their national, local, and international grant-making program. But before that, I was in theater, and I actually was paid to DM for 5 years while I was directing musicals in the Catskills in my 20s. So that's basically me.
Hi, Tony. I am the know-it-all in a I don't want to say fashion because there are other people in fashion. I'm in the garment industry. So that's where I'm working. I have not been playing since the 1970s. Like this one over here, I actually started playing not D&D. It was all a military-based game in college. So it didn't start until later for me. And then I started running. Sure, hi, come in, join us. Nice. Then I started running games for a while, and I ran large live-action games also for people who play Vampire, LARPing. So I was big into that for a good time also. And then we have Lee.
Hi, I'm Haley. I've been gaming for probably about 21 years, at least in a role-playing tabletop environment. I've played a lot of versions of Dungeons & Dragons. I've played a little bit of, not live action, but Vampire the Masquerade. A little bit of some futuristic stuff in there. I also ran a game in college. I worked with 2 other DMs, and they were both feature writers. So I did their bridge games, the mini games in between their games while they helped set up. We created our own world. And then I've done all sorts of other things. I'm a player in this group. These guys are our DMs. These 4,
Tony, yep.
These 4 have DM for us, just as a general call out. I'm in the fashion industry. I'm a designer for a menswear brand. And I think that's about it.
Cool. Jay?
I'm Jason Lazaro. I'm also a designer as well. I'm 42. I've been head designer for Laser Jeans, which is a young men's brand in New York City. I haven't been gaming as long as Arturo, but I've been gaming for 27 years. I started playing D&D in 1989, and I've pretty much played all the iterations of D&D, from the Greyhawk setting to Forgotten Realms, and also IGM for Eberron right now. Besides other role-playing games, Robotech, Shadowrun, Werewolf, Vampire the Masquerade. That pretty much specifically tabletop old school gaming. Not so much online.
Except for DDO.
Except for Dungeons and Dragons Online, which is Dungeons.
I think all of us have done a little bit of online.
Yeah.
Because I used to play Ultima in college.
Eric?
Hi everyone, my name is Eric Rodriguez. I'm an associate professor of psychology at the City University of New York. I started playing D&D when I was a kid, when I was about 12. I played AD&D all through the 80s and 90s, through junior high, high school, and into college. And actually my first adventure was the Keep on the Borderlands. Do you remember that one? I quit gaming in the mid-90s because I needed to focus on my career. But then I met this one in 2011, right around my 40th birthday. And then he invited me to join this gaming group in 2012. So I've been playing with them, working on my 5th year now. And this group of people up here represents this is my, sorry, but you know, this is my midlife crisis right here.
Really? A hell of a lot cheaper than
D&D is much cheaper than buying a car.
Yeah, that's
Adam.
because you're not buying all the books.
Hello everyone, I'm Adam Woolmer. I'm like a jack of all trades. I've done lots of office work. I've created and edited like IEEE catalogs and everything. Been in the military, do warehousing, construction, just whatever. I've probably done it at some point. Started playing D&D when I was like 17 or so, back in like 97 or something like that, or sometime back in those days. Did some like AD&D homebrew campaigns and some Vampire the Masquerade, and then joined this group somewhere around 2011 and been playing with them ever since. It's been a great time.
Cool. And I'm Eugenio Vargas. I'm actually an actor, singer, and musician here in the city. I've been gaming since I was a kid, but not tabletop. That only started about 2 years ago. But I had consoles all throughout childhood, loved the RPGs, the Zelda series, and Final Fantasy. Did some MMO stuff when I was in college, World of Warcraft for a few years. Now I still do a bit of Elder Scrolls Online, Neverwinter. But about 2 years ago, just over 2 years ago, my roommate at the time and I admitted to each other one night that we both really wanted to play D&D and never had. And I happen to know that these two, Jason and Eric, who are in the choir that I'm the associate conductor for in Astoria, I knew that they had a group that played weekly, so I begged on knees, Eric, if I could join the group, and they agreed. And it's been 2 years and they haven't kicked me out yet. So
One of our best decisions. Aww.
So I've sort of, in the last couple of years, I've sort of dived in headfirst to the tabletop world. I have been playing with these guys for 2 years now. There are two other D&D groups that I'm the Dungeon Master for at the moment. One here in New York at a gaming store in Queens where I live, and actually one in California that I Skype into a couple times a month. And also just recently I published an adventure for 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons on the DM's Guild website. Talk to me about that later if you're a tabletop player, because you should totally download it and you don't have to pay for it and it's all good. But you can talk to me about that after. So as you can tell, we, as a group of us, we are a tabletop group. We all have experience in various types of video games, varying levels of experience in that. What we're going to talk about today, a lot of the anecdotes that we're going to tell you are obviously based on our experience as tabletop gamers. But we think, and we hope that you will too by the time we're done, that the stuff that we're going to talk about, the specifics may be tabletop, but the general ideas and concepts and thoughts and value of diversity is true for all of gaming, whether it's video gaming and tabletopping. And of course, as we know, after the week we've all had, it's important sort of in every facet of our lives. So we've alluded to this in a couple of different ways already, but let's get a little more specific. One of the reasons that we decided to do this panel, to sign up to do this panel, was that we sort of realized that we have a uniquely diverse group in a lot of different ways. And that was something that we wanted to sort of share with you all. So raise your hand, guys, if you identify as a member of the LGBT community. So that's 4 of us out of 7. We have the majority, what? Raise your hand if you identify as a woman. So 2, I have to say, right, so Betsy here in the front is played with us for a long time.
And myself too?
Yes, please do. Yeah, no, please.
Another facet of this.
Yeah.
Yeah, so my name is Betsy, and I'm an environmental scientist. And I started playing with Jason 19 years ago when I moved to New York City, and there was a snowstorm, and his entire party, except one person, didn't show. I guess I would represent the disability group as I'm a brain tumor survivor. And so I'm intermittently, in and out of the group as
you are able.
As I am able.
Yeah.
Is able.
Betsy has played with us for a long time, longer than I've been with the group, and I'm so happy that you're here to share
Longer
this
than
with us
most of
today.
us.
But when she was with us, obviously it was 3 out of 8, so not a little bit, what was that, 37.5%.
Quick.
Thanks. We're glad you're here.
Okay, so thank you.
Yeah.
So
Raise your hand if you identify as non-white. So that's 4.5 out of 7. 4.5. What is it? 4 of us, let's say, are Latinx. I'm Mexican. Arturo is Cuban and Puerto Rican. Tony is Puerto Rican, and Eric is German and Puerto Rican. It absolutely counts. And Jason is Filipino. So we have the racial diversity thing going on. Raise your hand if you're in your 20s.
That's what we think too.
Your 30s, your 40s, and your 50s. So we've got the age thing going on too, quite a spread. Finally, raise your hand if you only got to raise your hand for the age groups. Yeah. I'm not saying we give Adam a hard time for being the only straight white cisgendered man in the group. Well, we do.
No, we do.
So that's us, and that is the dynamic that we wanted to talk to you guys about today. In this day and age, and like I've already said, especially in the last week, we hear all the time about the need for expanding diversity in just about every facet of our lives. But we sort of realized as we were thinking about this panel that so often we really only think about one aspect of diversity when we discuss diversity, whether it's ethnic diversity or gender diversity or LGBT, right? And that's great, but the problem with that is that you end up developing this sort of diversity tunnel vision. And I think then at that point it can be really easy to lose track of why the diversity is important in the first place and why we're trying to reach that goal, which is, I think, and we think, to have, in any situation, to have a full representation of viewpoints, of thoughts and ideas, and of experiences. And of course it is valuable for us to have 5 non-white gamers, right? But it is also valuable and important for us to have a, doing math, 25-year age spread, right? And it's also important to us to have these 2 beautiful women with us, and their viewpoint, and 5 dudes, and so all of those things are so important. And we can often lose track of that when we get down into the nitty-gritty of diversity. Diversity in gaming specifically, obviously, as this weekend is a testament to, is such an expansive topic, and we could go on about a million different aspects of it. But we've only got the hour. So we're going to be talking about the way that we have experienced diversity and the lack thereof in our lives as gamers, and the way that we represent the different facets of diversity, how we have actually concretely seen what an asset and what a value it is to a community like we are, and specifically to a gaming group and to gaming. We're going to go around and talk about, like I said, some of those experiences in a little more detail. At the end, we will hopefully have a bit of time left over if any of you have experiences that you would like to share with us, good or bad, about diversity or lack thereof. If you have questions, anything at all, we would love to engage with you on that. Most of us are going to be here tomorrow as well. If you see us walking around, grab us, have a chat, because obviously 1 hour is not enough, and this is an important discussion to continue.
Tony will actually be running her game for us somewhere.
Somewhere. We're going to find a table.
We're going to find a table and do it. So
You will be able to hear us because of him and him.
So we're going to start with our elder gamesman Arturo, and he's going to tell us a little bit. Well, I don't want to spoil it. You go ahead.
Thanks, Eugenio. So it's kind of funny. I was thinking to myself last night, about 40 years ago this month, I was 12 years old, I walked into a new bookstore that had opened up in South Bend, Indiana called the Griffin Bookstore, which just recently celebrated its 40th anniversary. And I've got my t-shirt. I went to the 40th anniversary convention. Pretty awesome. And it was, a bookstore, gaming bookstore, and I was introduced to the concept of role-playing games. And I actually was pulled into, this was before AD&D had been published, and I was pulled into, because South Bend is not that far, a guy named Tony that worked for TSR was a Griffin bookstore guy as well, and he pulled us into a...
TSR was the original publisher
Yes,
of
the
Dungeons
original
and Dragons, for those of you who are not taking
Dragons.
notes.
Sorry, see, there I go. It's like, I'm talking about the ancient days. But, he pulled a bunch of 12-year-olds, 11, 12, 13-year-olds, 14-year-olds into a play test for something called the Steading of the Hill Giant Chief, which became one of the first 3 modules of Dungeons & Dragons, Advanced Dungeons & Dragons. That was a life-changing moment when I walked into the Griffin bookstore. So since then, over the last 40 years, I have played in umpteen groups. So many groups. We had an interview earlier today where I shared with a woman. She was asking about coming out, like, when do you come out? And we told her, like, a person has to make a decision to come out anytime that he enters into a new situation, particularly if, for whatever reason, it's not obvious that you are LGBT. And I shared with her that there were several times, at least 4 times in my life, where I've had to leave a group because homophobia in the group sort of became obvious. And one time I did it in a really dramatic But
I want to hear that story.
But one of the things that I thought I would talk about in terms of the diversity is that this group, these beautiful group of people, I have been playing with them since 2009, so we've been playing almost every Friday night that we can. It is our tradition for 7 years. And I reflected on that in the context of what Eugenio asked us to do with this diversity panel. And there are certain ingredients of success, of why this group has come together, why this very diverse group of people has been able to forge this very successful gestalt playing together. And I thought I would start out the panel by sharing sort of my thoughts on 3 of those areas. One of them is that we enjoy each other's company, obviously, and as evidenced by laughter. I can't tell you the number of times that we break into laughing fits around the entire table that stops us for great periods of time. So really, if you get into a group where that is happening, where laughter is taking over the room, you hold on to that group with with fervor, because that's a really important consideration. Another thing is that we do outside activities. We plan outside activities. We create traditions. There's very many belief systems represented on our table, and we're going to talk about that a little bit later. But we have celebrated the holidays together. We have something called Geek Festivus, which happens every year. And sometimes we do Secret Santa, but many times people don't pay attention to Secret Santa and buy gifts for everybody. And we do that every single year. We also do the Ren Fair together. We've done the Ren Fair every single year together since 2009. And this last year, when they see this core group of us going to the Ren Fair, we attract a lot of hangers-on. So our group this year, our picture for Ren Fair has, I think, about 22 people. All have dressed, many going to their first Ren Fair or dressing up for the first time at a Ren Fair. And that's a cool thing. And finally, we don't just tolerate our differences. We are actively curious, and we cherish and are interested in them, and we take the time to explore them. And this happens in various ways, it happens within the game, it happens outside of the game, and in the context of us preparing for this, I learned several things that I hadn't learned before, which just deepened our strength and deepened our bond as a gaming group. So those are the kind of the 3 things that I thought I would just share with you as someone who has the most experience playing RPGs of anyone, probably almost at the conference.
Thanks, old man. Yeah, I think Arturo's point is really important, that when you find a community of diverse people, that group of people, by nature of their diversity and the fact that they are willing to be together, whether it's in spite of or because of their differences, that's going to be a factor in the cohesion of the group. And it so clearly is with us. And I think everything that Arturo said just sort of plays into the idea that our differences are what keep us on each other's toes, what keep us interested, and what have kept various iterations of this group together for almost 10 years now. So that's a really important thing to consider when you're finding your community, whether it's tabletop gaming, video gaming, guilds on WoW, or whatever it is. I'm going to talk a little bit now, if you all don't mind.
We're going from the oldest to the youngest.
Yeah, exactly. So I am the youngest one in the group. I'm still in my 20s, only for 2 more months. But I'm also, in terms of the tabletop gaming, which is what we do together, I'm also the least experienced. Like I said, I only really started with tabletoping 2 years ago when I joined these guys. And being able to learn from this particular group of people was the greatest gift, and the reason that I have gotten so involved in this community, in this world, in the last 2 years. As I'm sure none of them will agree with, I tend to like to be right all the time and always know the answer. And that's obviously when I was learning something completely new. I mean, there are similarities, obviously. Video game RPGs grew out of tabletoping, but it's a whole different world, right? I didn't know anything about it. And being able to learn from this group of people was such a gift, because we are not a group of people, this is not a group of people who all learned at the same time in the same way, and so taught me the same sort of vision of the game. I learned from people who've been playing for 10 years, for 20 years, for 40 years. And not only that, not only the difference in experience, the diversity of experience levels, but also just the way in which someone in their 50s imparts knowledge about the game as opposed to someone in their 30s imparted knowledge to me about the game. And we often, age diversity is certainly not sort of at the top of a lot of diversity priority lists, but it's such a valuable thing to consider. And this group is a perfect example of that. It's funny, just a few months after I started playing with these guys, I cobbled together another group that was also going to be playing. And that group is beautiful and wonderful and diverse in its own way, but we're all sort of mid-20s to early 30s, and all of us were brand new to tabletop gaming. And that group has stuck around. We're taking a little hiatus right now, but we've been together for 2 years. And it's funny to compare the two groups. That group learned at the same time, about the same age, and it is very much my take on what Dungeons & Dragons is like. We all sort of think about the game the same way, which is great, and is awesome and leads to exciting things, but it's so different from this group. Every single one of us, because of our experiences, has a different idea of how the game works, of how to react to situations, of why we're gaming. It certainly makes us into an interesting little island of misfit toys sometimes. But it's such an exciting and unpredictable in a great way atmosphere to play in. And I guess just being able to be in those two groups has really sort of brought it home, the difference and the importance of those two things. And age diversity is not, like I said, it's not super high on everyone's list necessarily of things to think about. It's also sort of hard to do, I feel, in the gaming community. Younger gamers tend to band together. We're on the cutting edge of the technology in video games, and we have our communities. And older, more experienced gamers often have their gaming friends, and they have their ways, and they have their games that they like. And that's fine, and through no one's fault, the two groups don't necessarily often have a chance to interact or to meet or to commingle. And I just want to say to all of you, like, take the extra time and the extra effort to find someone who's been doing it for 1,000,000 years. Or, if you've been doing it for 1,000,000 years, to find someone who's never done it before. Because that kind of variety of viewpoint and experience can make such a fun, rich, exciting experience for both parties.
And that's why events like this, very cool, because we get to interact, the whole range of people. So it's awesome.
Yeah. Sorry, I've got my timer going. I just want to make sure I'm not going on too long. We had an opportunity, last thing I'll say was not too long ago, we had an opportunity. I was going away for a while as a performer. I was going to be performing on a cruise ship. And these awesome people at my other group wanted to throw a going away party for me. And they said, what do you want to do? I said, well, frankly, I just want to game my face off because I'm not going to be able to for 7 months while I'm on board the ship, so let's do that. So we had this awesome party where both groups got together, came over to my place, and we gamed all day. And it was, we still talk about it with us, the other group still talks about it. Lydia actually here, who's being lovely enough to video for us, is part of my other group. And we still talk about it because it was this incredible crash and explosion of relatively brand new gamers who were all super nervous about meeting these gamer pros and the crazy things that they came up with to do in this game. And these guys, the experienced hands, kind of being nervous about meeting these people that they didn't know at all and who played a different system from them. And I think for all of us, that was a real testament to how important diversity in general, in particular age and experience diversity, can be in really enhancing your experience. So that's me. I'm going to shut up, and Tony's going to tell us a little bit about her experience.
Hi.
Kind of turning diversity on its head a little bit.
Yeah, my part in diversity is where I have always been the other person. I've always been the oddball in the group. You know, I was the metalhead who grew up in the South Bronx when rap was everybody's focus. You know, I was the only girl I was one of 10 girls in my college. Like when college was about.
Out of how many?
It was not, 15,000 was a high number yesterday when I thought about it. It's more like 5,000. It was a complimentary knowledge. Yeah, it was 5,000 guys and 10 girls. So few girls that all the ladies' restrooms were locked and every girl had her own key to the restroom. When I first started gaming, I was gaming with the guys in my college, hadn't ever played before, hadn't done anything. Went and hung out with them one day, and they had built their own game. All the guys in my group were all wanted to be in the military. One actually made it into the military and survived. One made it in and ended up getting a medical leave, but whatever. So they all had the same way of thinking. Their whole group was always military missions, and there was a complete, it was very similar mindsets between everybody in the group. And then I didn't always want to run a military mission because I got sick and tired of fighting for 2 hours about whether or not that Jeep would explode if it got hit with a bullet at 57 miles per hour. I was done. I was like, okay, I don't need this argument anymore. So I started running Cyberpunk for them, and it turned out to be a completely different world for them because I gave them moral dilemmas when they were fighting. It was not just, okay, here's the mission, we need to go and get this done. I was like, okay, here, you've been hired to go and find this girl. And then when they find the girl and they're like, okay, well, we have to assassinate her now, they find out at that time that she has the cure for world hunger. What do you do at that point? Do you really kill her and finish your mission, or do you take the moral high road and save her and save the world? So,
How did these boys take to that?
They took to it okay. It didn't always work out that great, but yeah, I had certain members who, when we were playing the military missions, they were always the followers and always in the back, and then when I started running my game, the guys who were in the back and never really took a stance, they actually ended up coming to the front, and they actually were like, yeah, no, we're not going to go with our mission. We're going to take the moral high ground. We're going to save this girl and get it solved the right way. So, but for me, that's my focus. It's just, I never, to me, I've always associated with being the odd one out.
Right.
So, and then when I ended up with this group, when I ended up with this group, it was a total head spin because, again, when I played in college, they all had the same mindset. When I played between college and before I joined this group, it was like, I would bring in my sister to play and all of our friends who was still the same mindset. I knew exactly what they were going to do when we ran a game, or when I ran a game. I started playing with these guys and I'd run a game and I'm expecting, okay, this is what's going to happen. And, oh no, no, we're not going to go that way. We're going to go do this. And I'm like, but I didn't prepare for that. Give me a second. All right, got it now. I've said it mentally.
I want to go back to the group in college a little bit more. So you were one of 10 girls in the whole group.
Yeah.
How did they, especially when you started running and sort of turning the game on your head, some of them took to it, some of them didn't. How did they react? Can you tell us a little bit about how else it affected them that suddenly this rarity of a woman was in charge and changing up their status quo?
Well, I have to say, at first it was a little bit harder because it literally, when I was running, they'd want to turn a sexual edge onto it, and then I'd have to bring it back around.
Okay.
And they're like, yeah, no,
And did you eventually did they learn that wasn't going to fly with you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. By the end of it, some of the guys, we all still hung out. We all still stayed together, and I talked to a few of them still to this day, but there were some who were like, well, you know what, we really don't want to play Cyberpunk anymore, so I was like, okay, no problem, but some of them stuck with me and they just kept, they were willing to take a different route and follow me that way, so.
That's great.
Yeah.
I think Tony's story is another story about why it's important to persevere and insist upon a little change and a little diversity, a little thinking outside the box.
Yeah. And
We
just
can't always please everyone.
Even though you're always, I'm always the oddball out, I've grown to go, you know what, even if I'm the oddball, it doesn't matter. Just go in and just do it. Just keep going. It doesn't matter what, I really started to learn what everyone else in the room is thinking isn't going to influence what I'm doing.
Yeah, and we can, Tony's is a great example, and we'll have another one in a little bit, but it's a great example of the way that we can sort of teach others by osmosis. I realize in a lot of ways we're preaching to the choir with all of you.
Yeah.
I understand that, but it's important to sort of say these things out loud that we all sort of feel like we intrinsically know. That, the way that these guys changed in their behavior towards Tony, and their behavior of the game, and the way that they thought about the game and their surroundings and their world was entirely due, it's a little bit reductive, but was entirely due to the fact that all of a sudden the girl was in charge. And there are a lot of other things that go with that, of course. But that was a large part of it, and it was a little tougher on you, and it was a little tougher on them. But in the end, it was worth it to make that effort. Yeah, to make that extra effort. Awesome. Thank you. Haley, would you tell us a little about your experience?
I wanted to talk a little bit about being a female gamer. I think that, and having it should be a positive experience. Most of my experiences gaming online, tabletop, have almost always been positive. I'm going to tell you a story about one of the very few negative experiences I had, and how we worked through it, or sort of worked through it, and how, again, I think we all learned from it. My second gaming group, I played with my brother and two of our friends from like age 4, people I've known my whole life. And it was all male, except for me. And our DM, a good friend of mine, my brother's best friend, he decided during one of our games that he was going to take his favorite NPC and not only hit on my character, but seduce her with a potion and impregnate her. And then there was a child that was involved. And it was not well thought out on his part. He was just trying to express something he didn't know how to express to a woman. And I'll be honest, we stopped immediately. After that game, we didn't play that campaign ever again. We continued to play. They're still friends to this day with me. And I would say we never talked about it, but it did teach him something. He learned how to talk to women, or partially how to talk to women.
How not to.
Or how not to, yes.
Not the Ruthie approach. Not the
As far as I'm aware, nobody ever talked about it. And this is a group of people that we talked about everything. We told each other when we were doing stupid things. And it was great to see, one, that we could get past it and still be a group. And also it was great to see that even though something awful happened, you should still continue to try. And you should stand up for each other. And I'm not saying this just in a tabletop game. I'm saying this in an online scenario. I think that's one of the most awful things, the bullying that's going on, especially with women. Especially, I think a lot of it's younger, but like, you've got to stand up for each other. That's a giant goal in this community, you know? We're diverse and big as gamers, but we don't always stand up for each other, and I think we should, and I think it's important.
Can I ask you a little bit more about the group with that? You said, that was sort of the end of that campaign, and that was left behind. Were there, you were the only girl in that group. Yes. It was mostly your brother and your brother's male friends. Were there other instances that you can remember where the dynamic, because you were there, was different? Either they would try something and then sort of abort mission when they realized it was inappropriate, or other ways that they sort of adjusted their way of thinking because you were around?
I would say they never, they talked to me, they knew, these guys knew me since I was like the age of 5. They spoke in front of me how they speak in front of everyone. They did treat me better than most of the other women in their lives. Girls, I guess at that time, girls in their lives. But I think they learned from that. I also think that one of the things I really want to talk about here is how to find a group. I know as women it's harder because you don't know many people and you don't know who to ask and you don't know how to talk about it. In that group, literally they were my brother's best friends. I've known them since they were 4. I had to talk my brother into letting me play because he didn't want me hanging out with his friends. But that's also, I think it's a key thing. Like, it's hard to find a group. I found my group that way with my brother. I found my first group was just purely accidental. I had an Australian exchange student coming over, and my friends wanted to hang out with her, and they played a game and invited us over. This group, which I think is great, I worked with Jason for 2 years, and a coworker of ours was teasing him about an avatar. I cannot remember the rest of the story on that one. It was funny. I remember he was teasing him about some avatar for some game, I don't know. And I spoke up. And that's how I joined this group, and just listening and speaking up so you can be a part of it. Speaking up for bullying, speaking up when you want to be a part of something. And I think that's the biggest thing here. Speaking up is the most important thing in this community. Because we tend to not.
Have you ever had an experience or seen another woman have an experience where their gender was sort of a block towards being able to participate in the group? Or if not, certainly we're all aware that is a thing that occurs. So what would you say to, beyond persistence, of course, but what would you say to someone who's sort of being shut out because of their gender?
I'd say find another group.
No, I think so. Yeah, and why?
Because you don't want, I mean, these people were willing to accept me into their groups. So they already had a road in, and they already were open enough. But if they're that hostile to begin with, it's not worth it.
Sure.
You want to find somebody at least who is willing to learn and change.
Right.
If they're going to be, it's not fun to play with somebody when they want you out of it. But I think most of the blocks I've ever experienced personally from gaming has more likely been women on women. Like, they don't want you there.
Yeah.
And that's even harder. I mean, I had a group of 3 girls, and it was great.
Great.
You know?
Yeah, I think that's an important point. One of the things we talk about now is the importance of I don't know how to phrase it, but really making our voices heard and making people who don't understand why it is important to understand. But at the same time, Haley brings up a really excellent point, which is that in the months and years to come, as we all sort of go out and do our best to promote diversity and equality in gaming and outside of gaming, we all will have to remember to do a little bit of self-protection, a little bit of self-preservation. Right? There has to be a line between fighting the good fight and doing harm to yourself. And everyone has a different line, a different limit, and it's important to know yours, because as Haley says, if it's really a resistant group, are you going to be able to change them and protect yourself? And if the answer is yes, push away, 100%. But it's an important thing to think about as we go out and show the value of diversity to those who perhaps have not experienced it as much as we are fortunate to. Cool, thanks, Haley. Jay.
Hey, so because we're talking all about diversity, I think for my part, as LGBTQ people, diversity is something that we can really embrace right now as older people, but there are people before us that have fought the fight as well. So my story is a little bit about before accepting diversity, I had to go through adversity to get here. I'm an immigrant. I grew up in a sleepy town in Florida, Largo, Clearwater, and I was introduced to AD&D in 1989 with my buddies that were kind of outcasts in high school. They were nerds, choir nerds, science nerds, math nerds. So we all got together all the time and played all weekend. And even within that group, I was a double minority. I was an immigrant and I was gay. And feeling safe in that group, I did feel safe because I wasn't teased like I was in high school. Every day was a struggle. But within that group, within the game, the context of the game, you're allowed to become anyone you can be. But I wasn't able to because I was still really afraid to come out. So
But to be clear, you weren't out to them at the time.
No, I mean, I've known since I was 5 or 6.
Sure.
But I think the reason why I really love this game is that it helped me come to terms with who I am and who I wanted to be. And tabletop D&D is very different than online because you get a sense of face-to-face. As opposed to online, you can be catfished, anybody can present a facade behind their avatar, and it could be fun. But I really value sitting across these people and having dinner with them, having drinks with them, and just becoming different people and fighting the good fight in another reality. That's all made up.
Yeah. Can you tell us a little bit about, so since you weren't out to this group, can you tell us a little about what, like, do you have any specific stories about experiences where that in particular sort of came to a head?
There was a point where these were all white, middle-class, straight boys. Teens, like constantly girl crazy, talking about girls, always talking about girls. So that was really intimidating for me because we were talking about first kids and wanting to do this with the girl, and I felt totally opposite from that. I was like, I didn't have any crushes on my buddies, but I wanted to be able to tell them, I really think this person's attractive, or I really want to show these types of emotions to people and feel safe. But a really big time was our party entered it in, and there's always the going wenching. So I went along with it because that's the way it goes. But there had been the GM at the time, he presented this character that was a stable boy that was very effeminate, wearing all pink leathers with studs, and my party proceeded to very verbally abuse him. And I have to say that I went with it because I wasn't comfortable defending someone that was dressed in pink leathers and effeminate, because I thought it would lead like a portal into who I was. I don't like pink though.
There's anything wrong with
But you know, those type of struggles as LGBTQ people, I think online gaming and gaming now, it's really important because I used it as a tool. I'm sure it hasn't changed that much today. Yeah, so that's.
So did you ever come out to that group, by the way?
I did in my 20s.
Okay. How did they take it?
They were all accepting,
Great.
you know, which was great. But
Have you gamed with them since then?
No.
Okay.
No.
Is this a group that Jason unfortunately is going to be leaving us before too long, moving back to Florida? So is this the group that you're going to try and get back with down there?
They all have kids and families. It's going to be hard. I've been really lucky because when I GM, my stories go from anywhere from 2nd to 3rd level all the way to 25. We just ended one. It was 2.5 years long. So we play every Friday. We start around 7 or 8, and we play until 2 in the morning. And if we get giddy, we play until 4. So I mean, the character arcs that we've had are amazing.
Yeah.
I see different facets of these people that I fall in love with every time they make a new character.
Well, since we're talking about us, can you talk about, and you already sort of are, but how is your experience as a player, and of course as a GM as well, but as a player, how is it better for you to discover things about yourself and express yourself as a person now that you have a bunch of crazy misfits around you, as opposed to one very homogenous group?
I
Just really quickly.
feel really blessed that I can be who I am, and what's great about creating tabletop characters is the way I kind of approach it, and I'm not an actor like Virginia, but I approach it like, if I create a new character, I want to be able to take a facet or shard of my personality and magnify it, and explore that, whether it's an evil character or a good character, or just something different than the collection of my personality.
Yeah.
So.
Cool. Thank you, Jason. Eric?
Yes. So, our group is not just diverse based off of sexual orientation and gender and race and ethnicity and some of those other categories, but we're also pretty diverse when we talk about issues of religion. And actually what I'm going to be talking to you about is issues of faith and community, and actually how my faith is actually what led me back into gaming in the first place. So, but just real quick, let's run down the line because we didn't get to cover this in the very beginning. What religion do you identify as?
Confused agnostic.
Arturo?
And I'm a theosophist, which is someone who studies different spiritual and religious traditions and science and crafts an understanding of the nature of reality.
Catholic.
Which is very close.
Okay.
Very simple.
Atheist? Recovering Catholic.
I'm Lutheran.
And I'm atheist.
So, one of the things that I have to preface this with two things. One, I'm the cleric. Always a cleric. I've always been the cleric. When I was a little kid, and my older brother and his friends, they needed like an extra body, but I was the little kid, and they're like, well, you have to play the cleric, and they felt like they were punishing me, and I was like, oh, great, this is cool. So, being the cleric has always been something that I've been very attracted to, and a character class that I've always liked to play. Religion has always, and spirituality has always been an extremely important part of my life, ever since I was a little kid. Currently, the work that I do as a professor at the City University, my work focuses on gay and lesbian people of faith, specifically looking at sexual and gender minorities and how they manage to deal with issues of identity conflict and integration between their sexual or gender identity and their religious beliefs. So religion, and I'm also the church council president at Trinity Lutheran Church in Astoria, in Queens. So with all of that religion in my life, you would think that when I come to my role playing, when it comes to my D&D playing, you would think that like I would avoid religion like the plague because it's like it's enough already. But actually, I use this opportunity to actually to explore issues of faith in even deeper ways than when I'm actually at church. If it wasn't for religion, I actually wouldn't even be a part of this group. Jason and I actually met at Trinity, so we actually met at church. It's also where I met Betsy. It's also where I met Jeff in the back.
Jeff!
it was that church connection was actually what caused us to actually become friends and actually invite them over to a party at my house where Jason saw my huge, I've been collecting science fiction and fantasy books since I was in 3rd grade, and I had to get my mom's permission to send in it was a card. In the paperback book, you had to send in the hard copy card, and my mom had to actually sign it. I remember getting all nervous about, oh, is my mom going to sign this card for me or not? And I've been a member of the science fiction book club since I was 12. So what, like 3 or 4 years now? But my religion was actually what allowed me to come back to D&D. And so when I sat down with Jason, and Jason was like, okay, what character do you want to play? We need to create a character for you. And it was like, okay, well, what's everyone else playing? Of course, no one at the time, no one was playing the cleric. And I was like, score! So I was like, of course, I want to play the cleric. And the campaign was based in Eberron at the time. And one of the beautiful things about the Eberron campaign is that religion in Eberron, the religious communities in Eberron are they're so amazing, and they're so detailed, and they're so well fleshed out.
For those of you who are not D&D players, Eberron is one of the many campaign settings that you can play in and set your games in.
3.5, right?
Yeah.
3.5. So I created Father Rand, my first character that I played since I was in high school, and now I had just turned 40 at the time when I was creating this character. Remember, this is my midlife crisis going on here. And Father Rand was a cleric of the Silver Flame, which is one of the really big religions in Eberron. And I ended up studying the Silver Flame and studying the theology of the Silver Flame with kind of like the same interest and fascination that I bring to my own faith as a Christian, as a practicing Lutheran. And so that the religion of the character for me becomes such an important part of how I play the game and how I connect with this group. And religion is what I use as my anchor community. And that religion for me, my church for me, Trinity for me, is a place where there's a community where you are welcome and you are embraced, and people accept you for who you are and what you present. And this group, because of my religious connections, which allowed me to become a member of this amazing group with these amazing people, this group has become one of the most important communities in my life. Not just because these are amazing people, and they are, and they know they are, but because with them, I get to play. I not just get to practice my faith, but I get to play with it, and I get to explore my faith, not just on a completely different level, but in a completely different world.
Yeah. So, he is the most authentic cleric I have ever
But thank you for that, Jason. So Jason brought gaming back into my life, and it was that religious connection that allowed it to happen. So thank you for that. Really
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Thank you. Adam's going to finish us off because, well, we sort of forgot about him. No, I think that Adam has, and I'm excited for you all to hear his story, because I think that it is important that when we talk about diversity, we can't discount the opinions, the viewpoints, and the experiences of the majority, right? Even though he happens to be the minority with us. And so Adam's going to tell us a little bit about his perspective on things.
Yeah. So anyhow, when I was younger, I was nothing of what Eric is talking about. I was raised extreme fundamentalist Christian, like verbatim from the Bible. If it's written, it is real. Which unfortunately turned me into a very bigoted little kid. I was, homeschooled in the backwoods of Pennsylvania for 5 years. We almost accidentally joined a cult for a while, but we didn't get in because my dad wouldn't shave his beard. It was, I was raised
Saved by the beard.
What a great name for a documentary.
I'm writing it down. Carry on.
So anyhow, as a kid, I was even bigoted to the point of being verbally abusive to gay people and everything, and definitely not something I'm proud of anymore. But my family, at some point came to ruin, and we kind of disintegrated. And at that point, I kind of took a Descartes look on life, where I just need to start questioning everything again. And at that point, I reintegrated to the normal world, started going to school again, started interacting with normal people. Like some of my first friends were actually metalheads, which was completely strange because I escaped from this to that. Yeah, like when I was younger, also I would never have played D&D ever because once again it was pathway to the devil. Anyone who played was obviously going to hell and not to be associated with. Yeah, I started exploring that eventually, and I realized that there's like nothing bad about it. I don't know where all this bad connotation is coming from. Became a big stoner for a while. I had dreadlocks down to my ass and everything. I got just completely burnt out for a while. So then I joined the military. And, yeah, like in the military, I started interacting with people from all across America and then all across the globe. Because I got stationed over in Germany, Korea, Kuwait, like just all over the place, and just had all these interactions and. It started to really open me up as a person, just being exposed to everything, really. And yeah, I really embraced that, and I enjoyed it a lot. And then I joined this group here, which is just all the diversity ever. And I find it's just simply amazing. It really helps you grow as a person. It's instead of just having a singular light spectrum, which will kind of ruin you as a person. It doesn't let you grow at all. This here is more of like just full sunlight, and it really helps you thrive. I really enjoy it.
Yeah. Just to go back a little bit, so you started sort of like you said your Descartes view on life, questioning things.
Right.
How old were you at that point?
I was probably about 14.
Okay. And then you went to college and started really mixing with different people. How old were you when you joined the military?
That was directly out of high school, so I was actually 17 when I signed up.
Oh, great. Okay. And then how long have you been gaming in general, not just this group?
In general, it's probably been about a cumulative 10 years or so for tabletop, and then I've been PC gaming ever since I was like 15 or so.
Sure.
You know,
And
Quake and Doom and
yeah. So, do you think that? I mean, obviously there was a lot when you were in the military. You were exposed to a lot of new experiences and diverse experiences. So that was certainly a huge part of it. I think, as I understand it, your transition. Can you talk a little bit about whether it was the diversity of the groups that you gamed with or the nature of the games that you played? Can you just talk a little more specifically about how your gaming experience with us or otherwise has continued to sort of teach you new things about that part of life?
Yeah, I feel like, especially with this group, when you're gaming, it's like, oh, we're just so off the cuff and crazy, and you never expect anything to come out of people. But yeah, it's just, you kind of get rid of your boundaries, and there's no true right and wrong as long as you don't go completely off the deep end and do something horrible.
Which we've done.
We've been together a long time, it's fine.
But no, it's very embracing, very accepting. It's something that I never had as a kid. Like, I was so one-sided. Everything was a clear, defined path, and if you did not go down that path, that you were just completely wrong, and there was no other way. And here, there is a defined path. There is just a world of options and possibilities.
You all have gotten a taste of Adam, and I hope that you all will, if you see him, chat with him and get to know him a little better. He's an amazing man, and I think he is such an incredible success story of what a little bit of forced diversity can do for us. We ended with him for that reason, that I think his story is such a testament to what we all know intellectually is true and works, but to see the results of allowing yourself to be open to a variety of different types of people and what it can do for you. We've got 5 or 10 minutes left, so I would love if any of you have stories that you want to tell or questions that you have for us or anything at all that you'd like to say. I'd love to open the floor to any and all of you for a moment. Yeah, in the back.
Bit of a latecomer, but actually my story is pretty similar to his.
Cool.
And we actually did join a cult.
Oh.
On my mom's room. It was billed as a Catholic homeschooling group, except we had a charismatic leader who would literally have people smile, make sure that we were doing the appropriate thing. We would all the standard cult of guilting tactics. We didn't go off to like a faraway land or anything, but it was an embryonic cult group. And the only reason that we ended up like distancing ourselves, which didn't mean that my mom changed any of her beliefs. No, it was because as the cult leader accused my mom of causing her to have a miscarriage.
Oh.
So that was she talked to a priest about it, and the priest said, "No, that's not. You need to completely distance yourself from that." But she kept all the beliefs of the cult about everything, including that my dad had to use physical punishment.
Well, it seems like since you're here with us today, I think you've sort of broken out of that a bit.
Yes, quite a bit. I am a bisexual person who is out and have been doing LGBTQ-related things for quite some time. Even protesting Donald Trump, who my mother voted for, by the way. Well, I actually have developed a much better relationship with my mother over the years, but we definitely don't see eye to eye. It's more of a mutual self-denial type. Well, not really mutual self-denial. I'm clear about who I am. She just pretends not there.
Well, thank you for that. Sure. Anybody else have questions or stories you'd like to share with us? Experiences? No is okay too. Cool. I know it's diversity there's so many things to talk about, and we unfortunately just due to time constraints sort of limited to our own experiences. But I hope that for those of you who find it hard to find a diverse group of friends within this gaming community, whether it's tabletop or video gaming or whatnot, I hope that some of the things we've been able to share with you today have given you hope and inspiration that we're out there and you can find us. And it takes a little extra work sometimes, but I think we're a testament to the fact that it's worth it. And to just go out, be safe, practice self-preservation and self-protection, but the proof is in the pudding, as it were. And as we finish out this weekend and as we go forward and to the great unknown that is going to be the next little while, think about any of the stories that we told you, any of your own versions on these stories, and fight that good fight, because as you can tell, you learn so much. Your experience of gaming and of the world and your interaction with all those around you is so much richer and so much kinder if it has a little diversity in it. Thank you all so very much for spending the hour with us. Enjoy the rest of the con. See you around. Come have a chat. Thank you all.